Ladies and gentlemen, some names are written in ink, but a few are written in courage. Joe Ranga is one such name. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite it. Joe Ranga's journey reminds us that true strength is born in moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. When circumstances tried to silence him, he chose to rise. When the world doubted, he believed. And when the path disappeared, he carved one with determination. Joe Ranga's life teaches us that courage is not a single heroic act. It is a daily commitment, to stand for truth, to face struggle with dignity, and to keep walking even when the road is heavy. His story is not about perfection but about persistence. Not about comfort but about conviction. In every setback, Joe Ranga found a lesson. In every challenge, he discovered purpose. His courage did not shout, it endured. It stood firm when tested and remained unbroken when pressured. That is why his story resonates, not because it is easy to admire but because it is real. Today his name stands as a reminder to all of us. You don't need permission to be brave. You don't need applause to be strong. You only need the courage to keep going. Courage is often misunderstood as the absence of fear, but in reality, fear is always present when something meaningful is at stake. Joe Ranga's story teaches us that courage begins the moment fear appears. It is not about being fearless. It is about refusing to let fear become the decision maker. Fear whispers doubts, creates imaginary limits, and convinces people to stay within safe boundaries. Courage, however, challenges those limits and pushes a person to act even when the outcome is uncertain. In Joe Ranga's journey, fear was not an obstacle that stopped him. It was a signal that he was moving towards something important. Every new challenge carried risk, criticism, and uncertainty, yet he chose to move forward instead of retreating. This choice required inner strength, because courage is a personal battle fought in silence. No one sees the sleepless nights, the self-questioning, or the pressure that comes before a brave decision is made. Courage over fear also means accepting vulnerability. It means understanding that failure is possible, rejection is real, and success is never guaranteed. Joe Ranga embraced this reality and still chose action. That decision, to act despite fear, is what separates ordinary intentions from extraordinary impact. Fear tries to protect comfort, but courage seeks growth. By choosing courage over fear, Joe Ranga proved that progress is never made by waiting for fear to disappear. Progress is made when fear is acknowledged and then overcome through purpose and determination. His example shows that fear may walk beside us, but it does not have to lead us. Courage takes the lead, and when it does, it transforms fear into fuel for forward movement. Strength is not something a person is born with in full measure. It is something forged through struggle. Joe Ranga's journey reflects the truth that hardship is not meant to break us, but to build us. Struggle arrives uninvited, often at the most inconvenient moments, and it tests patience, resilience, and inner resolve. Many see struggle as a sign to stop, but Joe Ranga saw it as a challenge to grow stronger. Every obstacle he faced demanded effort beyond comfort. Struggle forced him to adapt, to learn, and to discover abilities he did not know he possessed. When situations became difficult, there was no shortcut or easy escape, only the choice to endure. Through these moments, strength was developed quietly, layer by layer, shaped by experience rather than praise. Struggle also teaches humility and discipline. It removes illusions of control and replaces them with awareness. Joe Ranga understood that pain carries lessons and resistance creates endurance. Each hardship refined his mindset, sharpening focus and reinforcing determination. Instead of being defeated by pressure, he learned to stand steady within it. True strength is revealed when progress continues despite exhaustion, disappointment, or delay. Joe Ranga's struggles did not define him as weak, they defined him as resilient. His strength emerged not from avoiding difficulty, but from facing it repeatedly and refusing to surrender. Through struggle, he transformed pressure into power and adversity into personal growth. Belief becomes most powerful when it exists in isolation. When others doubt, question, or dismiss a vision, self-belief is often the only force left to rely on. Joe Ranga's journey highlights the importance of holding firm to belief even when external validation is absent. Doubt from others can be louder than fear itself, because it comes wrapped in opinions, judgments, and expectations that attempt to redefine what is possible. When people doubt, they project their own limitations. They measure potential by past failures or familiar outcomes, not by unseen effort or inner resolve. Joe Ranga chose not to internalize those doubts. Instead, he treated them as background noise, present but not decisive. His belief was not built on instant success, but on commitment to purpose and the willingness to endure uncertainty. Belief in oneself requires mental discipline. It means trusting the process when results are slow and confidence is tested. Joe Ranga continued moving forward even when recognition was delayed and encouragement was scarce. This unwavering belief became a stabilizing force, allowing him to stay focused while others questioned his direction. Belief when others doubt is not arrogance, it is alignment with purpose. Joe Ranga's faith in his own path provided clarity in confusion and strength during resistance. It allowed him to remain consistent when external support was unreliable, proving that lasting progress begins with belief that does not depend on approval. Success is rarely the result of a single breakthrough. It is shaped by the ability to continue when progress feels slow and effort goes unnoticed. Persistence is the quiet force that keeps momentum alive during long periods of uncertainty. Joe Ranga's journey demonstrates that success is not determined by talent alone, but by the refusal to stop moving forward, even when outcomes are delayed. There are moments when effort does not immediately translate into results. Doubt grows, motivation weakens, and the temptation to quit becomes strong. Persistence, however, demands consistency during these exact moments. Joe Ranga understood that setbacks are not signals to stop, but part of the process that tests commitment. Instead of measuring success by instant reward, he measured it by continued effort. Persistence also requires emotional endurance. It means showing up repeatedly despite disappointment, fatigue, or criticism. Joe Ranga remained focused on long-term vision rather than short-term comfort. Each step forward, no matter how small, reinforced discipline and strengthened resolve. Over time, these repeated actions accumulated into meaningful progress. True success favors those who stay committed when excitement fades and challenges multiply. Joe Ranga's persistence transformed obstacles into stepping stones, proving that consistency over time outperforms momentary bursts of effort. Through persistence, direction became achievement, and intention evolved into measurable impact. Setbacks are often misunderstood as failures, but in reality, they are moments of instruction. Joe Ranga's journey reflects the understanding that every setback carries information about strategy, timing, preparation, and mindset. Instead of viewing setbacks as permanent stops, he treated them as temporary pauses meant to refine direction and strengthen awareness. A setback forces reflection. It creates space to analyze what worked, what didn't, and what must change. Joe Ranga used these moments to reassess his approach rather than abandon his goal. This ability to learn under pressure required emotional control and maturity, because setbacks often challenge confidence and self-worth. Choosing to learn instead of withdraw became a powerful advantage. Setbacks also build resilience by exposing weaknesses that success often hides. They test patience and adaptability, demanding adjustments without losing focus. Joe Ranga recognized that progress is not always linear and that backward steps can still contribute to forward growth when lessons are absorbed. By extracting lessons from setbacks, he transformed disappointment into experience. Each setback added depth to his understanding and sharpened his decision-making. Rather than repeating mistakes, he evolved through them, turning obstacles into sources of insight and preparation for greater challenges ahead. Courage is often imagined as something loud and dramatic, but the most enduring form of courage is quiet. Quiet courage does not seek recognition, applause, or validation. It operates in silence, during moments when no one is watching and no praise is guaranteed. Joe Ranga's journey reflects this deeply rooted courage, the kind that shows up consistently without announcement and holds firm under pressure. Quiet courage is revealed in discipline and restraint. It is choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, even when taking a stand brings isolation. Joe Ranga demonstrated this courage by remaining steady in his values while facing uncertainty and resistance. He did not rely on attention to stay motivated. His strength came from internal conviction. This form of courage is sustained through patience. It persists when progress is slow and when external support fades. Joe Ranga continued forward without demanding recognition, understanding that true impact often takes time to surface. Quiet courage absorbs criticism without retaliation and responds to challenge with composure. By valuing quiet courage, Joe Ranga proved that bravery does not need an audience. Strength can exist without noise, and determination does not require display. This silent resilience allowed him to withstand pressure, remain focused, and continue advancing with dignity and purpose. Conviction is tested when choices become uncomfortable. Convenience offers ease, safety, and immediate relief, while conviction demands sacrifice, patience, and resolve. Joe Ranga's journey illustrates the discipline required to choose principles over comfort, especially when the easier path appears more appealing. Conviction is not proven in ideal conditions, but in moments where compromise seems tempting. Choosing conviction means standing firm even when outcomes are uncertain or support is limited. Joe Ranga understood that convenience often leads to short-term peace but long-term regret. By prioritizing conviction, he accepted discomfort as part of integrity. This choice required inner clarity, because walking against convenience often invites criticism and misunderstanding. Conviction also requires consistency. It is not a one-time decision, but a repeated commitment to values, even when pressure increases. Joe Ranga maintained alignment between belief and action, ensuring that his decisions reflected his principles rather than circumstances. This consistency strengthened trust in his direction and reinforced credibility. By placing conviction over convenience, Joe Ranga demonstrated that lasting impact is built through difficult choices. Comfort fades, but conviction shapes character, guiding actions with purpose and preserving authenticity through challenge and change. Inspiration is not created by words alone. It is generated through consistent action and visible integrity. Joe Ranga's journey became a source of inspiration because it reflected authenticity rather than perfection. People are inspired when they see someone endure difficulty, remain committed, and continue forward without losing direction. His actions communicated possibility more powerfully than explanation ever could. Inspiration grows when others recognize themselves in a story. Joe Ranga's experiences mirrored common struggles, doubt, resistance, and delayed success, making his journey relatable. This relatability allowed others to see their own potential reflected in his perseverance. His progress served as evidence that advancement is achievable through dedication and resilience. Being an inspiration also carries responsibility. Joe Ranga remained aware that his choices could influence others, shaping attitudes and expectations. By maintaining discipline and purpose, he demonstrated leadership through example rather than instruction. His journey encouraged others to persist, not by demanding imitation, but by proving what sustained effort can accomplish. Inspiration does not require perfection, it requires consistency. Joe Ranga's steady commitment transformed personal effort into collective motivation, allowing his journey to guide and encourage others navigating their own challenges. A legacy is not created in a single moment, it is shaped over time through choices, conduct, and consistency. Joe Ranga's journey shows that a true legacy is built through courage repeated day after day. Courage in decision-making, courage in standing alone, and courage in continuing when recognition is absent all contribute to something that lasts beyond immediate success. Legacy begins with responsibility. Joe Ranga understood that every action carries weight, not only for the present but for the future. His courage influenced how others perceived resilience, integrity, and determination. By remaining committed to his values, he created a standard that outlived temporary outcomes and personal gain. A courageous legacy also resists shortcuts. It prioritizes depth over speed and meaning over popularity. Joe Ranga chose long-term impact instead of short-term approval, understanding that lasting respect is earned through consistency and principle. Each decision reinforced a narrative of strength, discipline, and purpose. Legacy built through courage becomes a reference point for others. It provides guidance without instruction and influence without force. Joe Ranga's courage shaped more than personal achievement. It established a path others could recognize, respect, and draw strength from through his example. Life is inherently unpredictable, and success rarely follows a perfectly mapped path. Joe Ranga's journey demonstrates that embracing uncertainty is not only necessary, it is a defining feature of courage and growth. Uncertainty creates discomfort because it removes the illusion of control and exposes us to risk. Yet, it is within this uncertainty that true potential is discovered. Joe Ranga did not wait for the perfect moment to act. He understood that action amid uncertainty is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Embracing uncertainty requires mental flexibility. Joe Ranga learned to adapt plans without abandoning purpose, to pivot when challenges demanded new approaches, and to remain calm when outcomes were unclear. This ability to navigate ambiguity allowed him to move forward rather than be paralyzed by fear of the unknown. Uncertainty became a teacher, showing him alternative paths and revealing strengths he might never have recognized otherwise. It also demands trust. Trust in oneself, in the process, and in the possibility of positive outcomes despite incomplete information. Joe Ranga accepted that not every step would be safe or guaranteed, yet he chose to act with confidence in his capabilities and vision. By doing so, he transformed uncertainty from an obstacle into a landscape of opportunity. Furthermore, Embracing uncertainty fosters resilience and innovation. When outcomes are unpredictable, solutions must be creative, persistence must be strong, and patience must be deep. Joe Ranga's courage in uncertain moments inspired him to take calculated risks, learn from failures, and continuously evolve. This willingness to act despite unknowns became a hallmark of his journey and a powerful example of how growth emerges from stepping boldly into the unpredictable. True courage is closely linked to responsibility, the willingness to accept the outcomes of one's decisions, whether they bring success or failure. Joe Ranga's journey exemplifies the power of taking full responsibility for actions. He understood that blaming circumstances, external forces, or other people diminishes personal power and stalls progress. By owning his choices, he maintained control over his growth and directed his energy toward solutions instead of excuses. Taking responsibility requires honesty and self-awareness. Joe Ranga constantly evaluated his decisions, acknowledged mistakes, and learned from them without deflecting blame. This mindset allowed him to turn failures into lessons and challenges into opportunities for improvement. Responsibility is not passive. It demands active engagement with life's consequences and a readiness to make adjustments whenever necessary. Responsibility also builds credibility and trust. Joe Ranga's consistent acknowledgement of his actions earned respect from peers and followers alike. People are drawn to those who stand firmly behind their decisions, because it demonstrates reliability and integrity. By modeling accountability, he inspired others to reflect on their own actions and cultivate a similar sense of ownership. Moreover, embracing responsibility strengthens resilience. When outcomes are difficult or unexpected, those who take responsibility face reality head-on instead of avoiding it. Joe Ranga exemplified this by confronting challenges directly, analyzing what could be done differently, and using setbacks as a roadmap for improvement. In doing so, responsibility became both a tool for personal growth and a guiding principle for influencing others positively. Self-doubt is one of the most persistent obstacles to personal growth, often louder than any external criticism. Joe Ranga's journey shows that overcoming self-doubt is essential for achieving meaningful progress. Self-doubt questions abilities, magnifies risks, and creates hesitation, but courage is the ability to act despite that inner uncertainty. Joe Ranga confronted these internal voices head-on, choosing action over hesitation and belief over insecurity. Overcoming self-doubt requires deep self-awareness. Joe Ranga reflected on his strengths and weaknesses honestly, understanding that acknowledging limitations does not weaken him. It informs strategy and builds resilience. He recognized that doubt is natural when striving for something significant, but it becomes destructive only when allowed to dictate choices. By separating doubt from decision-making, he reclaimed control over his direction. This process also demands persistence and practice. Joe Ranga reinforced his confidence through consistent effort, small wins, and repeated attempts. Each challenge faced successfully, no matter how minor, chipped away at the weight of doubt. Over time, these accumulated experiences transformed fear of failure into a foundation for growth. Additionally, overcoming self-doubt requires patience and self-compassion. Joe Ranga did not expect perfection in every step. Instead, he treated setbacks as part of the journey. By validating effort over flawless outcomes, he strengthened his ability to trust himself. This balance between self-reflection, action, and encouragement enabled him to move forward boldly, showing that true courage is not the absence of doubt, but the determination to act in spite of it. Failure is often feared and avoided, yet Joe Ranga's journey demonstrates that it is one of the most powerful teachers life can offer. Instead of viewing failure as a mark of inadequacy, he treated it as an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve. Each failure revealed weaknesses, highlighted areas for growth, and provided clarity about what strategies worked and what needed adjustment. By embracing failure as a guide rather than a verdict, Joe Ranga transformed obstacles into stepping stones. Embracing failure requires a shift in perspective. Joe Ranga understood that failing at something does not define personal worth. It defines an experiment in progress. Each misstep became a lesson in resilience, patience, and strategic thinking. He approached setbacks analytically, examining the causes without self-criticism or blame, and extracted valuable insights that shaped future decisions. This mindset also demands courage. It is not easy to face disappointment repeatedly, especially when expectations are high or stakes are significant. Joe Ranga demonstrated that the ability to rise after falling strengthens character and fortifies determination. Every failure he encountered became a rehearsal for success, building the mental toughness needed to face increasingly complex challenges. Furthermore, seeing failure as a teacher encourages continuous growth. Joe Ranga cultivated curiosity and adaptability, recognizing that each failed attempt offered new knowledge and experience. By internalizing lessons from mistakes rather than resisting them, he advanced with greater wisdom and confidence. In this way, failure became less of a setback and more of a catalyst for personal evolution and achievement. Vision is the ability to see beyond the present, to imagine what could be, and to pursue it with clarity and purpose. Joe Ranga's journey exemplifies how a strong vision acts as a guiding light, especially when circumstances are uncertain or obstacles appear overwhelming. A clear vision provides direction, fuels motivation, and creates a framework for decision-making, allowing action to be purposeful rather than reactive. Having a vision requires foresight and imagination. Joe Ranga looked beyond immediate challenges and envisioned the impact he wanted to create, both for himself and for those around him. This mental image of the future gave him focus, helping him prioritize efforts and resist distractions. Vision also provides resilience. When the path becomes difficult, keeping the end goal in mind sustains effort and perseverance. The power of vision is amplified when paired with action. Joe Ranga didn't stop at merely imagining what could be. He translated that vision into concrete steps, consistently moving closer to his goals. A vision without execution remains a dream, but with intentional effort, it becomes a blueprint for achievement. Vision also inspires others. By articulating a clear sense of purpose, Joe Ranga influenced those around him, creating alignment and shared determination. People are drawn to leaders who know where they are going and act with certainty, because vision transforms uncertainty into possibility. In Joe Ranga's story, vision was not just an idea. It was a living, guiding force that shaped his journey, decisions, and ultimate impact. Resilience is the ability to recover, adapt, and continue moving forward in the face of difficulty, and Joe Ranga's journey exemplifies this quality in its truest form. Adversity is inevitable. Challenges, setbacks, criticism, and unexpected obstacles are part of every meaningful pursuit. What separates those who succeed from those who falter is not the absence of adversity, but the capacity to respond with resilience. Joe Ranga demonstrated that resilience is cultivated, practiced, and strengthened each time one faces hardship and refuses to surrender. Resilience requires mental strength and emotional intelligence. Joe Ranga learned to manage his responses to difficult situations, controlling frustration and fear while focusing on solutions rather than problems. Adversity often brings intense pressure, but resilience allows individuals to see beyond the immediate discomfort and maintain perspective, keeping the long-term goal in focus. Resilience is also built through persistence and adaptability. Joe Ranga did not let obstacles dictate his journey. He adjusted strategies, learned from mistakes, and found alternative paths when faced with barriers. This flexibility, combined with unwavering determination, created a momentum that kept him moving forward even when progress seemed slow or uncertain. Furthermore, resilience inspires confidence, both internally and externally. By demonstrating the ability to withstand adversity without losing purpose, Joe Ranga modeled strength for others and reinforced his own belief in what is possible. Each challenge he overcame added layers to his resilience, preparing him for even greater trials ahead and proving that true strength is measured not in moments of ease, but in the ability to rise repeatedly when life tests you. Discipline is the foundation upon which achievement is built. Joe Ranga's journey demonstrates that talent, courage, and vision alone are not enough. Consistent action guided by self-discipline is what transforms potential into results. Discipline is the ability to maintain focus and effort over time, to prioritize long-term goals over immediate gratification, and to follow through even when motivation wanes. Discipline requires self-control and routine. Joe Ranga understood that every small decision contributes to larger outcomes. By committing to daily practices, habits, and responsibilities, he created momentum that carried him through challenges and kept him aligned with his vision. Discipline ensured that even when circumstances were difficult or distractions tempting, progress continued. Moreover, discipline cultivates resilience and accountability. It teaches the ability to endure discomfort, delay rewards, and push through fatigue or resistance. Joe Ranga relied on discipline to navigate periods of uncertainty and maintain consistency in effort, knowing that results are often delayed but eventual for those who persist. Discipline also strengthens focus and decision-making. By adhering to structured principles and routines, Joe Ranga reduced the influence of impulsive choices, external pressures, or fleeting emotions. This clarity allowed him to act purposefully and strategically, ensuring that every action moved him closer to his goals. Ultimately, Discipline became the backbone of his success, sustaining his courage, reinforcing his vision, and enabling him to turn determination into tangible achievements. Inner strength is the foundation of enduring success, and Joe Ranga's journey highlights how it is cultivated through experience, reflection, and conscious effort. Unlike physical strength, inner strength is invisible. It resides in mindset, emotional resilience, and the ability to face challenges with composure. Joe Ranga's life demonstrates that inner strength is not given. It is developed through consistent practice, self-awareness, and the courage to confront life's difficulties head-on. Building inner strength requires understanding oneself deeply. Joe Ranga reflected on his values, beliefs, and priorities, using this awareness to navigate complex situations. By knowing who he was and what he stood for, he could remain steady when external pressures attempted to sway him. This clarity allowed him to act with confidence even in moments of uncertainty, turning self-doubt into a source of growth rather than limitation. Inner strength also grows through adversity. Each challenge Joe Ranga faced became a training ground for mental toughness. Failures, setbacks, and criticism were not obstacles to his growth. They were opportunities to practice patience, resilience, and perseverance. By confronting difficulties instead of avoiding them, he transformed vulnerability into power, demonstrating that true strength comes from enduring, learning, and adapting. Furthermore, inner strength reinforces independence and self-reliance. Joe Ranga did not depend solely on external validation or support. His ability to trust his judgment, maintain focus, and act decisively allowed him to continue progressing even when support was limited. This internal fortitude enabled him to face uncertainty, persevere through struggles, and sustain courage over time, proving that real power originates from within, not from circumstances or recognition. Patience is a quiet but essential force that underpins every lasting achievement, and Joe Ranga's journey illustrates its transformative power. In a world that often seeks instant results and immediate gratification, patience allows individuals to endure delays, setbacks, and slow progress without losing focus or determination. Joe Ranga recognized that meaningful success is rarely immediate. It requires time, consistent effort, and the ability to wait while continuing to work diligently toward long-term goals. Patience requires discipline and self-control. Joe Ranga understood that frustration and impulsivity can derail progress, while steady, measured actions create lasting results. By cultivating patience, he was able to navigate uncertainty and maintain clarity in decision-making, ensuring that each step taken aligned with his broader vision. This ability to act thoughtfully rather than react hastily allowed him to avoid mistakes driven by emotion or haste. Patience also fosters resilience. During periods of struggle or when results were slow to appear, Joe Ranga maintained commitment without becoming discouraged. He treated delays not as failures but as part of the process, a necessary period of growth and preparation. This mindset enabled him to endure challenges without losing momentum or vision. Moreover, patience enhances learning and adaptability. By allowing time for reflection and observation, Joe Ranga could assess situations carefully, gain deeper understanding, and make informed decisions. Rather than rushing through obstacles, he used patience to analyze, strategize, and strengthen his approach. In this way, patience became both a tool for sustaining effort and a guiding principle that ensured his actions were deliberate, focused, and ultimately effective. True leadership is not defined by titles or authority, it is defined by action. Joe Ranga's journey demonstrates the profound impact of leading by example. Rather than merely instructing or advising others, he embodied the principles he valued: courage, discipline, persistence, and integrity. By living these values consistently, he inspired those around him more powerfully than words ever could. His life became a model of behavior, showing that influence is earned through demonstration rather than assertion. Leading by example requires consistency. Joe Ranga understood that sporadic actions or selective adherence to principles are insufficient to inspire trust or respect. Each decision he made, each challenge he faced, and each obstacle he overcame reflected his commitment to his values. This consistency reinforced credibility and provided a tangible reference for others seeking guidance or motivation. It also requires accountability. Leaders who model integrity are willing to accept responsibility for their actions, admit mistakes, and adjust course when necessary. Joe Ranga exemplified this by taking ownership of both successes and failures, showing that leadership is grounded in honesty and transparency rather than power or recognition. Furthermore, leading by example cultivates influence without coercion. By demonstrating resilience in adversity, patience in difficulty, and courage in the face of fear, Joe Ranga inspired others to rise to their own potential. People follow those who act with authenticity, because authentic action creates trust, motivates commitment, and fosters an environment where growth is not just encouraged, but naturally emulated. Through leading by example, Joe Ranga showed that real leadership is lived, not instructed, and that the greatest impact comes from actions that reflect the values one wishes to see in others. Consistency is the bridge between intention and achievement, and Joe Ranga's journey exemplifies how sustained effort transforms goals into reality. Talent, ideas, and courage are important, but without consistency, they often remain unrealized potential. Joe Ranga understood that repeated, deliberate actions, performed with focus and dedication over time, produce results far greater than isolated bursts of effort or motivation. Consistency requires commitment and self-discipline. Joe Ranga demonstrated that success is rarely the product of a single heroic act. It is the result of persistent effort, day after day, even when progress is slow or recognition is absent. By committing to consistent routines, habits, and standards, he ensured that momentum continued, even in the face of fatigue, distraction, or setbacks. It also fosters trust and credibility. People observe patterns of behavior, not isolated actions. Joe Ranga's consistent approach built confidence in his character and reliability. Others could look to him as someone dependable, someone who followed through on promises, met challenges head-on, and maintained alignment with his values. This consistency strengthened relationships, inspired teams, and created a foundation for influence. Moreover, consistency reinforces resilience and growth. Repeated effort under varied circumstances develops skill, sharpens judgment, and strengthens adaptability. Joe Ranga used consistency to hone his abilities, refine strategies, and accumulate incremental progress that compounded into significant achievements. By making effort habitual, he reduced reliance on fleeting motivation and created a steady pathway toward long-term success. Ultimately, the value of consistency lies in its ability to transform vision into reality. Joe Ranga's unwavering commitment to consistent action allowed him to bridge the gap between aspiration and accomplishment, proving that sustained effort is the key driver behind meaningful, lasting results. Joe Ranga's journey is more than a story, it is a living testament to what can be achieved when courage, persistence, and conviction guide every step. His life teaches us that true strength is forged in adversity, that fear is not a barrier but a signal to act, and that every challenge holds a lesson if we are willing to learn. As we reflect on his example, let us remember that courage is not reserved for the extraordinary, it is a choice available to each of us every day. We can face uncertainty with determination, embrace struggle with resilience, and pursue our visions with relentless consistency. By following the principles Joe Ranga lived by, we too can transform obstacles into opportunities, setbacks into growth, and dreams into reality. So, let us take inspiration from his journey, let his story ignite the courage within us, and let our actions today be the first steps toward a legacy written in bravery, conviction, and unwavering determination.